The gaming community is a community of a bunch of stupid people who are really dumb, and I don't like the gaming community, and I think that they're wrong about a lot of things. One of my favorite examples of the gaming community being stupid and just flat out wrong and just stupid is with Zelda and with Wind Waker. You remember when Wind Waker came out and everyone was like, "Oh, these graphics suck. These graphics are so cartoony. I didn't want this. I wanted something more serious and for adults and something better than this. And this sucks. I can't even play this. I can't even look at this. I can't even where even is the link on the screen? There's no link here. All I see is a child." And then Twilight Princess comes out and they're like, "Oh, this is too serious and dark. And there's no colors. It's not cartoon. Give me the cartoony Zelda. Give me the This is bad. This is bad Zelda." This video isn't about Zelda, obviously. I'm not really here to talk about Zelda, but like my point is, and I think I've gotten the point across, that video gamers are stupid and wrong about everything, and they only look at things at face value and they never take into consideration a lot of things. Everybody within the past few years has been talking about PlayStation 5, and for some reason nobody talks about Xbox One, but Xbox One also kind of falls into this whole thing of like, what's even the point of this console generation? That's the main thing that I want to talk about today, is the point of the console generation and what are we doing here? Why did I buy a PlayStation 5? Why should you buy a play? Maybe you shouldn't buy a PlayStation 5, but why would you buy a PlayStation 5 when you can play all the games on PS4? There's no games on PlayStation 5. There's no games, not a single game. Why would you buy an Xbox One? There's no games on Xbox One. Because that's not what I'm talking about. The other Xbox, the other one. Everybody's argument against this current generation of consoles is that all of the games play still on PlayStation 4, and all the games that are coming out really should be possible for the most part on PS4, with a few exceptions of a few certain parts that probably you maybe due to certain technologically limitations you couldn't do on PlayStation 4. But for the most part, like a lot of games, you look at the PlayStation 4's library and then you look at the PlayStation 5's library and you look at the upgrades especially, and it's like, man, side by side, there's not really a whole ton going on here. And people have felt this way for the past few years, ever since the PlayStation 5 came out. And then Sony had the balls to ask $700 for a PlayStation 5 Pro system for even more graphical upgrades. And people were very quick to point out the fact that the graphics look the same on both consoles. You idiot, Sony. You think I can't tell that they're the same picture, like in that scene from The Office show? I think this is the stupidest argument on the entire fetching planet, because it completely, like, you take one side of this box and you're like, we're going to throw all of our paint on this side, but what about all the other sides? This box has five other sides, and you're only talking about one side of this argument. For me, whenever we're going to discuss anything, whenever we're going to declare anything, whenever I'm going to say that something is something, then it's important for me to be able to explain objectively why that is and be able to approach that from every angle, because I want to know what is true and I want other people to know that I know what's right, because I'm a genius. And truth is important to me. What is actually factually correct is important to me. That's one of my maybe autistic OCD things, is that when there's misinformation of any kind, it pisses me off. And that's why I make a lot of jokes about misinformation, because it's very funny to tell lies. The thing that you're getting with the PlayStation 5 isn't really a graphical upgrade as much as it is a performance upgrade. Playing games on the PlayStation 4 and then onto the PlayStation 5, there is very much a performance difference. You get a better frame rate on the PlayStation 5, and I think that's awesome. That's why I bought the PlayStation 5. When Resident Evil 4 came out, I looked at the performance for the PlayStation 4 and I was like, you know what? I don't want to play this game at 30 frames per second. I want to play it at 60 frames per second. And so I bought a PlayStation 5. I could have played it on PC, but PC ports lately have been really frustrating, and I'm just about had it with computer. Computer make me mad. So yeah, like, I don't understand why nobody's talking about that. Obviously, if you're looking at the side-by-side screenshots then it's like, oh man, yeah, they look almost exactly the same with the exception of like maybe you see one extra tuft of hair coming out of this person's head. I get that. That's definitely a valid argument that they don't look better until you see those screenshots start to move, because that's what screenshots do when you're playing the video game. There's a lot of screenshots, and the number of screenshots that you get increases with the newer, fancier console. That's what you're paying for. And for some people, that's not going to be worth the $500. And I totally get that. For me, I really like to play at a decent frame rate because I love looking at the smooth, buttery frames. And not everybody's like that. I get it. That's totally fine if you're not, because I still think that you can have a fun time and a great time with a lot of these games. It doesn't really compromise the experience. But why the fetch can't we understand that? Why is everybody is out here being like, no, they're the exact same game on the different consoles, man? What? My entire life is just me looking at other people's videos and telling them why they're wrong. So that's what I'm doing here. So here we go. We're going to look at some video from this guy and tell him why he's wrong and I'm right and I'm a genius.
Talking about how the 8th console generation was the most pointless one of all time, but a lot of people misunderstood and thought I was saying that it was entirely pointless. However, let me make it clear that it wasn't completely unnecessary, just the most unnecessary. My whole point was that most PS4 and Xbox One games had better visuals for shadows and things like that, but ultimately, the entire libraries could have been ported onto the PS3 and 360 if absolutely necessary, and the only ones who'd really notice are hardcore gamers. And look,
only hardcore gamers would notice. Nobody else would notice the graphical fidelity dropping because PS3 probably couldn't run every game on the PS4 that's on the PS4. I don't think you could get every game on there, but probably a lot of them, they would look really, really bad though.
I know there's no way to say what I'm about to say without making a lot of people angry, but ever since the Resident Evil 4 remake had the nerve to ask me if I'd prefer performance or frame rate, aka ray tracing, I've just been getting more and more red ass thinking about it. Because when it's making you choose between performance and frame rate, what it's really asking you is what you want to sacrifice, and I think it's really friggin' lame to buy a new console and have to choose what area you want it to slack off in. I know PCs have been doing this for a while, but at least it makes sense there since everybody is a unique computer, not everybody's gonna have the same hardware, so if you don't feel like spending extra money, then maybe it is wise to cut a few corners graphically here and there.
I'm upset because my console is giving me the option to either use more of it to do this or use more of it to do this. I just want the console to choose for me what it's going to do. I want it to choose what it's going to do.
When it comes to consoles, though, you shouldn't have to think about what you want to sacrifice. You should just put the game in and play. Look, I'm not saying the consoles need to be stronger than the strongest gaming PCs, which also have trouble with ray tracing for whatever it's worth. But if you can't put a console out that can effortlessly run ray tracing with absolutely positively zero drawbacks, then maybe you should wait till you actually have a machine that can. Because I don't care what anybody says, if it's not effortless, then you can't really claim to have it as a feature. When 99% of the games that have been coming out over the past few years are also on the old consoles anyway, then why on earth was there a rush for new hardware in the first place? Don't get me wrong, I honestly like the idea of new consoles not having exclusives for a few years, since there's really no good reason to deprive over 100 million people of a game in the hopes of forcing them to buy new hardware that won't be readily available for 3 years thanks to impatient rich people funding the scalping business, especially since all the old consoles could still run all the new games just fine as far as the actual gameplay is concerned. I'm also
Except they don't run it just fine because they actually run it, they run it not worse, they run it better. The new one run it, because I don't think that we really need to chase graphics anymore. To me, I feel like we've gotten graphics, that we had graphics all figured out with Uncharted 3. I've been playing the Uncharted games, and when I got to number 3, I was like, wow, these are really good graphics. This came out on the PS3, and I don't think that graphics need to be any better. Why are we, like, putting bazillions of dollars into all these games, making them more expensive and more complicated to produce, when we could just make them look a little bit worse and make it more manageable and then make the game awesome? Because honestly, Uncharted 3 still looks like a breathtakingly beautiful game today. It still looks fantastic. What's the issue? What's the deal here? What's up with that?